mapping done, then we can check it like how can you define your database migration scripts and Flyway scripts. So because we don't like to hibernate create the schemas, we try to use the professional database migration tools like Flyway. That's we have it here. So based on the model definition, what we define here, the schema, we see the schemas like that has a 4 tables, the user registration table, exactly the same definition of the columns that what we define into our domain models, our object models. It has a user URL ID, address ID, it has all the levels information, and exactly what we define into our initial script, each of the tables. You see that exactly is a registration address ID, mail, mobile phone, first name, full name, last name, user login name, password, and so on. It has a primary key definition, and it has user registration profile information that's we already defined here. That's exactly the same table names, and it has attribute information. Very straightforward. The SQL scripts. You can create also SQL script by hand, or we can first time to create the SQL script out of the Hibernate, then copy paste into here. But I did it as a like professional way. When I did the model definition, same time I just put it the object table names and put the level it exactly what I do my object models, my domain models. So I defined exactly the same thing here. So user registration, user profile object, and user role definition object, and this is the one of the part. This is the relationship between your foreign key and primary key relationship, as we already discussed into our model part. So exactly that this foreign key, that's what we define into our models. If I see the foreign key relationship, I see this is one-to-one related in the profile. If I go to the profile sections, you see there is a profiles like user foreign key, user profile, registration profiles. We level it, and then we put it this exactly the same relationship between our object models and then our JPA or ORM models to our migration script, database migration scripts. So initial version it was there, then after that we have initial requirements that we put it here, like the sequence creation that I already discussed. So it's like it will be the complex sequence creation. Maybe your SQL developer will create some complex functions or procedures, then you need to be create, or you can put it this script to make complex procedure and functions. But you got the idea what I mean. How can you do this professional structure? How can you build the sequences and complex sequences? Not the system will take the primary key, but in the enterprise level application, if you think one of the payments or invoices from PayPal or Google or Facebook, that's a really big sequence number, the unique identity numbers. That's why you need to understand how the sequence number is be created, how you can handle it. That's why I give it to you idea how you can create those sequences as per your business logic. So that's the most important part. So we have a base understanding of the database, the data models, and the sequence understanding, and that was a new requirement was the tables, user registration tables creation. Maybe you need a additional table, maybe next versions, then you need to add the new version of the your scripts and then add the models of the your scripts. That's the idea behind the scenes. The continuation. So you see we add the new tables, and then we have the foreign key, primary key relationship, and then reference to the user registration as per your model definitions. So and then we add some sequences, new sequences, that's user sequence we created, new version, the version number 4, and then we add some constraint of the some foreign key and primary key user role. They see foreign keys here in reference to the user registration clause. So that means we defined our models as for the continuous integration and continuous deployment process. If you have a new requirement like add new columns or delete one new columns or makes more constraint into the models, then you need to be define new version of your scripts, your script, and you have to define into the new constraint or add columns into your respective models. That's the idea behind the the how can you synchronize, how can you match together your JPA or your ORM models to the your script models, your Flyway script models. That's the things. So that means we defined our all models, and we define the respective script, database migration script with Flyway. But you can also use the liquid based depending, because I already had it, but in this case we are discussing about the Flyway based database migration way and migration concept. So you can simply that migration file, you can also liquid based can be used as like I already show you in the last screencast. But you see the only thing is same in the db changelog file and the one of the master files, and as it is, just simply link the your version number. It works automatically. It doesn't matter which tool you are using. And those are using the liquid based, just follow this previous screencast, or those are using the Flyway. That's what we are doing now. Important part. So that means we define the models, we define the respective SQL scripts, and then now we need to be define the define our implementation, our repository definition, standard repository definition. We need to define our interfaces, we need to define our controllers, and then we need to be configure our controller with the Swagger UI. That's the for the Swagger and API documentation. That's the thing we need to be do together. Let's have a continue the other part. So it's straightforward. The models part is we have 4 models, 1 2 3 4 5 4 models basically, and this is the some default models for the auditing purposes. I have additional columns, but we didn't implement yet those models, those implementations. So it has we just simply use the auditing model for our when he created the records, and when he updated the record, that's automatically insert the information into the your database server. I will show you when I start the application and look for the database into the Docker container. So we define the models. That's we are clear part. This is on the, and then we define all the default repositories that we need. So if I can go to the user registered repository, the standard paging and sorting repository, even you can use also the JPA repository or code repository, but in the pagination case, I use really paging and sorting repository to using the page to loading the page by page for loading, or you can rendering purpose or caching purpose. It is important to do the paging one by one. So one page maybe 20 record, not hundreds records, maybe 10 records, and then let's make really quicker and faster into your application, into web applications. And then this user role interface, the simple additional information is there, the additional 2 interface definitions, and then we have user detailed repository. That's exactly the same thing is there, and then user profiles, the exactly same, the extending the paging and sorting repository. And we didn't have additional, but we will do the additional functionalities. That's if you need a complex query functions to be rejoining 2 or 3 or 5 tables, that's we need to be queried, and then there is a Spring Boot has a possibility to add query annotations that I will show you later part. How can you do the complex query syntax or complex query functionalities with the query annotation or modify annotations, even though you can write down very simple SQL script there and then run the complex function, even though you can also call the procedure and function from the backend server or database server. For this case, for our case, is a Postgres database server that we are running. So we define the repository and we define the services interfaces. That's I say this is the professional way. How can you program it in the professional life? And then we define the interfaces. All the interface definition is there, and also all the interface definition is there. So additional interface definition, and then we define the finally we the implementation of the services. So let's it's a service implementation. Let's have a discuss about a little bit more in the implementation of the services. How can you handle those implementations? It's very straightforward.